We are group number 7, and we are discussing the leadership theory of the trait approach.
Are personal traits what makes someone a natural born leader? Many people often believe that natural born leaders were born with these specific traits. Yet, leadership traits have been studied to try and determine what makes someone a good leader. So, what are some specific traits that make a person a good leader? Some of them include intelligence, awareness, insight, initiative, responsibility, self confidence, perseverance, and sociability. In the end, we learned that leadership isn't a passive state, but it results from working with others. And we're able to conclude that being a good leader does not come from just having certain traits. Being a good leader results from a good working relationship with others.
In a 1974 survey, over 100 other studies conducted were analyzed, comparing the results to its predecessor study. In the first survey, situations had bearing on leadership, but with the second survey, it was determined a combination of traits and situation had a bearing on leadership, back to the original idea that traits contributed to leadership skills. There were 10 identified traits in total. These traits were drive for responsibility, persistence in goals, risk-taking and creativity when faced with issues, initiative in social situations, self-confidence, acceptance of consequence, readiness to shoulder stress, willingness to tolerate delay, ability to influence others, and ability to structure social systems. One trait that has been previously identified as important within leaders is intelligence, but there's actually evidence that a severe difference in intelligence between leaders and followers can become a negative. Another trait identified as helpful for leadership is self-confidence. It shows that one is assured in their goals. An example of a leader who possesses both of these traits was Steve Jobs, who had both the intelligence to create Apple products and the self-confidence to know that he could.
Another important thing for leaders is their sociability and their ability to create strong, positive relationships with others. Another thing that ties into this is the 5-factor personality model, which lists 5 separate traits: neuroticism, extroversion, openness, agreeableness, and conscientiousness as traits that people can have and vary with. Another important thing for leaders is emotional intelligence, which is concerned with our ability to understand emotions and apply this understanding to life's tasks. This is a super important trait for a successful leader because it allows them to empathize with their followers and create the most agreeable path to success for everybody. But how does a trait approach actually work? It focuses on the leader rather than the followers, and is concerned with what traits the leader has. It emphasizes the importance of the leader having these specific traits and how it's crucial for effective leadership, as well as emphasizing self-reflection within the leader themselves.
The strengths in the trait approach are able to show us primarily what a leader does and looks like. The theory has a century of research and credibility underneath its belt, highlighting what attributes are needed in a leader as it highlights the leader aspect in the leadership process, showing how leaders are different from other people. There are also weaknesses to the trait approach, like the failure to have a concrete list of leadership traits, ambiguous studies. It singles out highly subjective leadership traits, and it does not consider situations in the leadership process. Someone could be a leader in one situation, but not in another. Trait approach provides valuable info about leadership traits. Although it does not have a set list of traits, it gives direction as to what a leader would look like. An example case study 2.1, shows a boss hiring one person for a particular position, but she has difficulty choosing between 3 candidates because they all have great qualities. She must assess not only their qualifications, but also their personalities and their work ethic as well.
The owner of a small business passed away and the wife had to take over the business but never was involved before. The wife applied trait approach here when she assesses her position in the company, strengths or weaknesses she has that affect business, and how her traits and her role would affect others in the company. This shows how the application of trait approach is used for making decisions in organizational settings. The head of recruitment at a bank is experiencing a lot of pressure to be more specific about new hires, and management is questioning his process. He thinks he looks for perfect characteristics along with strong ability to do the job. He feels people he hires are perfect fits. Being told by upper management to assess, he questions himself and practice. Trait approach can be applied here to help him figure out where he stands in his company, what strengths and weaknesses he has, and how these affect his work in others. Organizations and companies use questionnaires to measure an individual's attributes for leadership and how they can best serve the organization. An example is a leadership trait questionnaire. LTQ quantifies views of the leader and observers such as coworkers, peers, and subordinates. It measures traits and points the individual to areas in which they have strengths and weaknesses. The LTQ not only helps an individual assess their personal leadership traits, but you can also gain an understanding of how trait measures are used for leadership assessment.
There are many leadership qualities that are listed during the trait research theory. These consist of being self-confident, self-assurance, persistence, being determined, being trustworthy, friendly, outgoing, consciousness, sensitive, empathetic, etc. Around the 20th century, several studies have questioned the basic premise that a unique set of traits were what defined leadership. Trait research now has come through a full circle, though, and with an improved interest on focusing directly on the critical traits of the leaders. There are many advantages as well as disadvantages associated with the trait research theory. Some advantages are it'll an idea that leaders are special people, and it can focus exclusively on the leader and see what their approach is, and helps the leader understand leadership skills as well as the processes associated with it. There are also some disadvantages, though. It has failed to provide a definitive list of leadership traits, and it usually doesn't take into account situations in which leaders are put in, meaning that not everything is bound to go right or wrong, depending on the situation.
Some leadership traits that we believe are necessary in order to succeed include trustworthiness, confidence, compassion and empathy, loyalty, intelligence, diligence, and organization. Leadership traits are a great thing to possess, but one must also consider not only the leader in the leadership process, but also the supporters who help them and the situation at hand in order for them to effectively be successful.